welcome to the game of who's got the best minimum wage situation. We are TipHaus, and we've got a great panel for everybody today. A couple of great customers and friends at this point, I'd say. Andrei and Ryan, who have agreed to sort of impart some wisdom and share some stories of what they've been doing over the last few years. So welcome to the webinar, everybody. Thanks for being here. A couple quick housekeeping items just for everyone's knowledge. We're going to do a live Q&A. So if anybody has a question, please post it. We will receive it on our side, and we'll get to that when we hit the Q&A section. We are going to be recording, so if you have tech troubles or you weren't actually here, we'll be sharing that later as well. We're going to do a couple of live polls throughout the conversation and get some input from you all. And there will be a survey kind of on the back end to help us continue to improve these and bring content to you that actually is valuable to you and your business and helping all of us be a little better in the restaurant industry. And then we will randomly pick a winner of a gift card at the end of this, and we will announce that at the end. So if somebody's going to get some free Starbucks or something similar. I'm Steve Hooper. I'm the president of partnerships and business development here at TipHaus. Prior to joining the team here, I was actually a TipHaus customer myself. I used to run a 32 location restaurant group here in Seattle. So I know the pain. I felt the pain. I've been on your shoes, and now I'm just trying to help everybody do what they do and maybe even do it a little better. And I get the joy of working with great folks like our panelists today. So first up is Andrei. Andrei, if you want to give us a little bit of your background, maybe where you started in the restaurant industry and why you still love it in spite of our government's attempts to make it really hard to do our jobs.
Sure. Well, thanks, Steve. Thanks for having me. Hello, everyone. My name is Andrei Stern. I'm the co-owner of SuViche Hospitality Group. My brother and I started in our first restaurant 15 years ago this year, May 26, 2010. A very small restaurant in Miami. Today we have primarily two brands, two restaurant brands. One is called SuViche, which is a Peruvian Japanese. We have 4 locations. And the second one is called Novecento, which is an Argentinian steakhouse. And we have 5 of those. And yeah, 15 years later, we're still excited, motivated, new challenges. But as restaurateurs, we're always, it's nothing new for us. So trying to keep our heads up and do what we can to continue to stay and innovate and do what we love, which is why we're all here.
Great. And up next, we've got Ryan Kellerman. Ryan, why don't you take it away?
Hi, everyone. I'm the Digital Solutions Manager at Huse Culinary. We're a restaurant group in Indianapolis, Indiana. We have 5 restaurant locations around the Indianapolis market. We've been in Indiana. The Huse Culinary brand has been around since the 80s, owning St. Elmo's Steakhouse is our main location here in Indianapolis, and have expanded since then. We are going to be expanding into Arizona in about a year from now, so that is a whole nother thing that we have to look into when it comes to minimum wage compared to Indiana, so that's going to be exciting for us. But yeah, I've been in the restaurant business for a little over 20 years, and done it from all the way from GM level and managers all the way up into the technology space. So, and we've been with TipHaus for a little over a year and a half now, early 2023, and it's been a game changer for us on that side of stuff. So.
Appreciate the shout out, Ryan.
Yep.
So wanted to give everybody a nice little view of some of the beautiful restaurants you guys build and operate today. So we'll leave this up while we're chatting here so they can salivate over the opportunity to visit one of your locations at some point. But would love to, I guess, kind of dive in here and jump into sort of the topic of the day, which is the dynamics around minimum wage. Every state's a little different. Every city sometimes even is a little different within some states. My home state here of Washington, in Seattle, we have, I think, 6 minimum wages within a 10-mile radius. And so everywhere is just a little bit different. But I guess, within the minimum wage dynamics of your home state, or Ryan, I guess states you're moving into, what what are the current dynamics, for each of you, and how has that changed in the last few years, if anything? So, Andre, maybe you want to kick us off.
Sure. So here in Florida, we're essentially in the height of this minimum wage battle, if you want to call it that. No, we about 3 or 4 years ago now, legislation went into effect where minimum wage has been increasing for about $1 a year. We're going up from around $8 to $15 in a matter of 5 years. And really, what we've seen the effect, or the hardest hit area of our business has been the front of the house, because we do have a tip credit, but the tip credit has remained unchanged. So that essentially more than doubled our minimum wage, our tipped minimum wage. And that's where we've seen or have had to have conversations around how, the business model essentially changes when you're talking about maybe your front of the house expense was 5-6%, 7%, depending on the restaurant location, the size. Now, what happens if that expense all of a sudden becomes 10 to 12%? No, that's obviously cutting into your margins quite a lot. So, the first couple of years we were able to sort of just take the hit, and now more and more restaurants are finding ways to get around it. Commission model is one of those ways that some restaurants have been able to do it. But right now I think that um, we've been sort of having to deal with that over the last few years. And at the end of the day, I focus on the front of the house, just because the heart of the house, um, we've always most restaurants have always paid above minimum wage. And right now we're at $13 an hour, but we're already paying more than that. So at the end of the day, the biggest impact of the last 3-4 years has been on front of the house, and
Makes
and
sense.
how we've been able to solve that, looking for solutions to solve that.
Makes sense. What about you, Ryan? Indiana and whatnot.
Yeah, so in Indiana, we are still the same as the national minimum wage, so we're 7.25. So we are kind of in that section of it, somewhat, I guess, lucky, I guess, if you want to say it that way. We do have the tip credit, so our servers make 2.13 an hour, and so right now that's worked for us, and the use of TipHaus and things like that has allowed us to make up that. We do our back of house employees are making quite a bit more than that, and that's where we have seen a huge spike. We are a fine dining, mostly restaurant, so but we're our average in the kitchen is in 22, 23 hours an hour usually, so it's
Mhm.
pretty high. And that is one thing that we are trying to mock up scenarios of when we go to Arizona, and how we redo the tip structure, possibly to does that mean we have to bring down our wages in the kitchen a little bit? And Arizona does allow you to send tips back to the kitchen employees too. So like, there's things that we're looking at, just trying to figure out how do we spread that out a little bit to make up room for that when we go to Arizona. So
Yeah, it makes good sense.
yeah.
So I mean, and maybe even speaking into that, right? Like, you are operating using the federal like tip minimum wage today. It does sound like there have been pressures on other parts of the house, as look, it's in the news everywhere, the like wages and whatnot. So even if you don't have minimum wage pressure specifically, the team is probably pressuring as well, right? So like, how do you think about managing those dynamics within your restaurants now, even without the push from government?
Sorry, Jesse, there.
Yeah, sorry, that was Sherrod. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, so like as that wage goes up, as the team is pushing you for wage increases, you know, obviously
yeah,
you want to feel
yeah. I mean,
responsible for those things.
right. I mean, at the end of the day, we need to stay competitive, not just on what we're serving our guests, but also on what we're paying. Because we compete on both. We're competing for guests and we're competing for talent.
Yep.
So at all times, we're trying to find ways to make our business more efficient so that we can pay more. At the end of the day, that's our job. That's our day-to-day job. And throughout, I think the last couple of years with the two brands, we focused heavily on looking what we called it a menu party, which is essentially looking at everything, right? That goes into what we do,
Yep.
from recipes to number of items, number of ingredients, how many recipes are we executing per day, how many items is our menu composed of, what is actually moving our sales, what are we actually moving, are we cross utilizing our ingredients, and all those little decisions eventually and hopefully add up to using less labor hours, in the
Yep.
kitchen. So it's been an exercise that we've in the past. You might just be looking at certain dishes that might not be moving, or that you need to, perhaps you need to improve. But this in 2024, if we took the time and just really spent 3 months in each brand, from the corporate side, to really look and see, okay, like the number of steps that we take, or the number of ingredients that we have, and see how we can improve across the board our efficiency, so that it allows us to pay more, because it's not that we don't want to. No, at the end of the day, we're trying to run a business, and everybody sort of has needs.
Yep.
And so how do we meet our team's needs? Well, first, we try to the business meets their needs, so that then we can meet their needs at the end of the day. So that's helped us a lot. We just relaunched a new menu for one of the brands, and it's been very good. So that's sort of one of the ways we've tackled the increase in the last 4 years, which are not all directly related to minimum wage. I think there's also inflation pressure that we've all had to deal with, and our wage naturally has gone up in the kitchen,
Yep.
probably 50% since the pandemic.
Totally.
And so it's that kind of prepared us for this conversation of minimum wage,
Right.
Um,
You're looking at everything already. I was talking to actually my business partner in the restaurant group. We had a drink yesterday, and he did a big audit of the last 5 years of like trash, utilities, like all the like other OpEx line. He's like,
yeah,
they're up 30 to 50% in the last 4 years. Uh, and it's like, holy smokes, like everything is putting pressure on the P&L. Absolutely. So you're right. Like it's not just there's no silver bullet here, I think is what you're
yeah,
also saying. So there's
right.
operational stuff and all that kind of thing. So it sounds like that's the menu party that you mentioned is one strategy operationally. How can we get more efficient? Maybe use less hours to do the same amount of work. All that fun stuff that you were mentioning. What are some other kind of strategies that you've kind of leaned into? Be it from a compensation to help compensate your team fairly, but also keep the business healthy. Because unless as my dad liked to tell me, there is no mission without margin. So got to make money to stay in business. So would love to
Right.
kind of hear what's worked and maybe things you've tried that didn't go so well. Because we can learn just as much from, if not more, from our failures than we do from our successes.
Hmm.
Ryan, you want to jump in?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know for us, I mean, we do offer some different benefits for hourly employees if they fit the criteria. So we've opened that door a little bit. Obviously, if you can't, it has to work in your model, and you got to fit it in there. But like we do offer some type, we do offer some health insurance if they hit all the requirements to some hourly employees. So that's definitely allowed us to keep some of those long-term employees that we have that we want to keep around that are awesome. We've opened that door a little bit for them. There is an expense to that, but we've done the same thing that Andrei's done. We keep really an eye on in the kitchen and really any food and all that kind of stuff. And then I think I had mentioned before, as well that trying to utilize all the systems that we have. So with like TipHaus, we did change over to time of sale for the tip structure, and that has really helped. We had to tweak our scheduling a little bit, which obviously helped with labor, but that did spread the tipped wages out a little bit better and the tip shares and stuff like that to our employees. And so we've definitely seen an increase in just the staff being happier with what they're receiving. And so at the moment, those few things that we've done like that have really allowed us to stay competitive, because it's obviously a competitive market, and and leave if they can find something better. So right now, those things have worked for us. But again, I think you got to continuously keep tweaking and be open for tweaks, because if you're not, then things change so fast that people are going to leave you, right, and go somewhere else. So.
Yeah. What about you, Andrei? I know I'm gonna tee you up here. You've done one of the more interesting transitions I've seen in the restaurant industry. Leveraging some new models that have been growing and whatnot. So, love to hear about kind of what you were doing before and what you've transitioned to in 2024.
Sure. So yes, I think like we've been talking about. Now there's multiple facets of things you need to work on so that we can all get to the same goal, which is how can we compensate our team fairly and competitively. And I mean, it came a point, quite honestly, that there's just not much we could do. We can't just become more efficient if our P&L line for front of house is going from 6 to 12%. I mean, can you really find 6 points in your P&L? It's a very difficult task. So one of the things that some restaurateurs have been doing, especially on the West Coast, have been doing for quite a long time is the commission model, which essentially allows you to change the hourly wage as long as you meet certain criteria, being that compensation for an hourly employee. If more than 50% of their compensation comes from commissions, the hourly wage can be set forth by the restaurant. So it can be below minimum wage. And what is considered a commission is essentially if you charge a service charge, and it is considered a commission and you can pay it out as such. So the first preamble to sort of establishing the model is that your restaurant needs to charge a service charge, which in and of
Which is a
itself,
hurdle for a lot of
yeah,
restaurants, right? A lot of folks
correct,
are nervous about it.
correct. For us personally, our opinion was that we didn't want to be first and we didn't want to be last. We wanted just to do it at a time where people are more used to seeing the fee. So what we did at first is just test out the fee without ever promising or having obviously plans, yes, but not disclosing that the ultimate goal was to roll out the commission model. So we tested for 6 to 8 weeks the service charge in the Novecento brand, which has a higher average ticket. It's a $40 average ticket, which is an average ticket we're here, at least in Miami, and this is obviously very specific to your geographical location. People are more used to seeing it in higher end restaurants, quote unquote. We didn't see any negative feedback from guests. So then we rolled out the commission model, which essentially out of the 18% that we charge for service charge, we distribute 100% to the team. We wanted to make sure that was, for us, very important pillar was that, the idea is to distribute 100% of it. And then what we've actually seen is that the average tip has gone up. So previous to rolling this out, our best performers were maybe averaging 19%. And today, after the 18%, our top performers are getting an additional 4 to 5%. So you're at 22, 23%. So the reduction in the hourly wage that we did, because we did reduce, and that's how the business saves money. We've seen our team is able to get that and more with the additional tip. So we have seen that guests when they receive, good service and they're happy and the experience is good, that they are leaving 4, 5, 6% on top of the service charge. So that has helped us tremendously in mitigating some of that rise in cost. And I think one of our worries too was like, we use tip as a KPI of performance, and we thought we were going to lose that because now sort of service charges included, and where's the motivation, like where is the incentive for service to be above and beyond. And we've seen that metric stay true, or that the ability to track that metric through the additional tip. And we do see that the top performers get 4 or 5%, and low performers are barely getting 1-2%.
Yeah.
So it has been
There's
a
still a
very
difference
interesting
across
experience.
team. There's still a difference across team based on quality of service provided, is what you're saying. One
Correct.
interesting thing about the commission model as well that others have seen, because we have a few other folks that we work with that have implemented this model as well, is the team, theoretically the tip ties to what they earn, and so the harder you work, the better the tip, the better the money, right? But if you can say, look, you're making X% of every dollar that comes into this restaurant, now you're getting teams that they're like, maybe I'll upsell that dessert. Maybe I'll try and get them to get the better bottle of wine. Like all of a sudden they're improving the sales for the business in addition to like making themselves more money. It's an interesting kind of mental shift, I think, for some individuals. Maybe not everybody gets how that works, but the ones that do, I think there's a positive side to that as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Ryan, as you kind of have made tweaks to like tip pools or shares or the way that you do this stuff, have there been challenges that you faced with the team, or how have they reacted as you made changes, and what have you done to sort of, you know, bring them along? And because the minute you start talking about their compensation, everybody freaks out, right? They're like, oh my God, they're stealing my money. That's their first reaction. So what have you done to sort of mitigate some of the knee-jerk negative reaction from the team?
I mean, it's super challenging, right, in the restaurant business. People don't like change. I don't think we're exceptions to I don't think anyone likes change, right? But I feel like being in this business as long as I have, there's something about a restaurant worker that really does not like change. So, I mean, yes, it was challenging. What we did is we actually we proposed the idea, internally from an operations department. We ran numbers, obviously, what we thought would be the impact and how we would have to adjust to that. And then we went as an operations team and as a executive team, went to one location that we thought we could impact the best, and we rolled it out there, and we got them to really buy into it. And we let them do it for about 2 months, and they really that change, and they really had great feedback. And then we tweaked the schedules a little bit to help them with their feedback. And then once they really liked it, we went to the next location. Obviously, being an internal company, all within the same area here in Indianapolis, they all start talking when things changed. So luckily, we had some good support from that first location. As we went through, though, and we got to our oldest locations, it got harder, right? Because they are even the ones that don't want to change even more. So it took a lot of just a lot of sit downs with that core group of people and really take them through it and explain why. Again, everyone wants to know the why and why we're doing it. And we definitely had to tweak schedules. We had some bartenders coming in super too early anyway, and with time of sale, they don't want to come in early anymore because they're not going from a daily.
Doesn't benefit them in any way. Yeah.
Now they're not really making any money. So which actually benefited us in the sense that now we're not having that labor dollar early, and we try to explain that to them, right? So you just had to balance it a little bit, and so we were able to tweak schedules mostly to accommodate them. I still think we have a few people that have been around for a long time that might still have questions or still push back. But I think from an operations standpoint, we're lucky that we had a team that really bought into it from the top level and really went after it. And just it's all about messaging and how you really get that out to your team, right? And as long as you explain the why and really can get through to them, I think you can find the wins, with all those people. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's, over communicate, right? Say it 10 times and they might hear it once, kind of thing, or remember it. Andrei, pretty big shift for you, right? You went from tips over to service charge. So there was one set of communications you probably had to do around that shift. And then you went from service charge to commissions. Um, what was that? What was that journey? And we have a question in the chat. Thank you, Andy, for preempting the question I was getting ready to ask. What was their reaction? How did you help mitigate that? And did you lose anyone through that journey?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest weapon you have is planning, right? I think it's a decision that you can rush through, and nor is it a rollout that you can rush through. So for us, it was very important that we did our due diligence and our homework because we wanted to make sure that our team was going to be better off after the fact. We didn't want to just sort of, hey, let's flip a coin and hopefully they'll make enough money, right? So we were very diligent in our assumptions of saying, okay, this is how much we think people are going to leave as extra, and this is now how the distribution is going to look. And so we wanted to be, this is how much we're going to, essentially pay them by the hour. So it took us the entire year really to roll out across 8 restaurants, which it's not a lot of restaurants. So and we just took it step by step, with a lot of emphasis on the communication and face-to-face meetings, and like Ryan said, buy-in from key team members, team members that have been with us for 3, 4, 5 years, asking them, is like, hey, this is what we're thinking of doing, like, how does it sound to you? They have sort of boots on the ground experience and that helped us guide us in the process. And then having buy-in of those key team members was also very helpful in the process. Um, so we started rolling it out in May of last year, and we didn't finish until September because we would start with a few we started with 3 locations, communicated the message, make sure the team understood, and then sort of moved on to the next set of locations, just because we wanted to be as open to change and as quick to change as possible. Because if we did something wrong, we wanted to make sure we were listening to if what we were doing wrong, and that we would change it immediately. So in the process, I mean, obviously change, is not easy. Some people would rather not see it. So we turned around 10%, 10 to 12, I think it was 12% of our front of the house team. So I think out of 200 people, we lost like 22, 23 people. So we did see some people leave, but for the most part, I think people were happy. People were, like you said, incentivized, that they had the power to make more money, even though that's sort of the case regardless. When it's a guaranteed service charge or commission, I think the switch changes a little bit. So for every dollar extra I sell, I get 18 cents, regardless of what happens. I'm not dependent on, here in Miami, there's a lot of tourism and, tipping culture. We receive a lot of different tipping cultures. So you might have some guests that, leave 5% and they think they're tipping well. So we did have to deal with that a lot previously, and now that's sort of solved itself.
Mm-hmm.
But I think our biggest asset has just been, very good planning and time and yeah, not rushing through the motions.
Yeah, and we've spoken about this before. There's a secondary benefit to what the commission model that you're on related to overtime. Would love to have you kind of maybe speak into that piece of it and how that benefits the team and the business simultaneously.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. I forgot to mention, but essentially the 7I exemption, which is what the code that it's called. It's an overtime exemption essentially. That if the team member meets the requirements and 50% of their wages are coming from commission, and they're they don't we don't necessarily need to pay overtime, as long as they're getting paid time and a half, like they're making more than time and a half essentially, right? And that allows us two things. There's the obvious benefit to the employer, but then there's also the benefit to the employee, which is that what our hypothesis was, and it's maybe we're too early to prove it, but we're in that direction, was that what if instead of an employee having two jobs and working 35 hours with us and 15 hours somewhere else, what if we can give them the 50 hours, right? That will help us in the long run. Instead of having a 20 server pool, maybe we can run the restaurant with 15 because they're working 42, 45, 50 hours, right? So that means less people we need to train, absolute number of people we need to train. Even if our turnover remains the same, it's less people we will need to train. So there's a savings there. There's the obvious overtime savings, and there's less people you need to manage at the end of the day. So still too early to tell, but I think there's people that have sort of embraced this, and they want to work 50 hours with us. They don't need to commute to the second job, open here, close there. So there's some benefits in that realm as well. I don't need to learn two menus. I don't need to sort of, there's some obvious benefits there. So that is also a big side effect or side benefit of this transition that I think is net positive for both us and team members.
Yeah, and they can get more from one and not have to stress about two. And that when I heard about that, I was like, oh, wait a minute. There's something in this model that I think more people need to at least evaluate, particularly as you're going into other states or as your state is implementing changes, as many have and are. I guess one of the things that Stuart, thanks for your questions. We do have the Q&A in a minute, but the service charge isn't what's changing the hourly minimum wage that's paid. It's shifting to this commission model and the 7I exemption that Andrei was talking about. And if you have any questions about this, please, we'll have our information here and you can reach out. There are some. It's a federal exemption, and so it's not really doesn't really vary from state to state in that way. The minimum wage, the time and a half you have to hit will vary state by state based on the minimum wage you're operating under, but that's the only real nuance state to state. Everything else is handled federally. So just wanted to cover your questions there, Stuart, while we were talking about commissions. Before we kind of go into kind of the Q&A side of things, most of the where you're going, Ryan, next in Arizona, Florida, just about everywhere else is doing inflation tied minimum wage, and so it's going to go up forever from here on out in most places. How do you continue to stay ahead of it, and how do we as an industry continue to stay healthy and continue being the centers of the community that we are? Would love any other ideas you contemplated or thought about implementing in the future for the group, if there's anything that's comes to mind.
I think we've named a lot of them. I mean, obviously, I think you got to continuously look at your menu pricing. I think that was on the poll too that I saw just a second ago. So really analyzing that. I know that puts pressure on the consumer that comes into your building, but at some point you have to take price increases to be able to you have to find a happy medium there to be able to handle the inflation on the all the inflation that we're dealing with, labor and on our food side too, and all that. So I think that has to be always considered, but just everything, schedule, tighter schedules, ideas like what Andrei is doing, I think are great. I mean, my head's already running right now based on going to Arizona and what he's doing. So some good proposals there. So I think, and you got to talk to your peers, just like this here. I mean, we got to continuously keep talking to each other and really just figure this out. I mean, restaurants aren't going anywhere. I mean, we're here. We are a core to the community, and they do love us. It's just that we have to find a balance to still let them come in and eat at a reasonable price, hopefully for them. But we're in a business, like Andrei said, and we have to find a way to make a business run as well. So.
That's good. So I appreciate both you guys jumping in here. We'll go into some Q&A here in a sec, but right before we do, we at TipHaus have partnered with our lawyers at Zaller Law Group around just a little no tax on tips and overtime petition. Andrei, I have no idea what this means for the commission model yet, so we'll figure it out.
I don't think it's exactly. We'll see.
Maybe we add commissions to that, like no tax on tips.
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
Who knows? I don't know. Anyways, we just launched it this week. We got over 1,000 signatures on it. Love for folks that are supportive of this particular thing. And at TipHaus, we want to help owners, operators, and their employees thrive. That's our goal in life. And so, this is just another way we can do that without digging into any of our own pockets. So hit the QR code or hit the link that Tanya just dropped in the chat. So we do have one question in the chat, which I think is a great one. What are some other kind of non-cash benefits that you guys have implemented or thought about implementing for your team? Ryan, you mentioned healthcare being one. What else have you guys thought about or heard about that seems to be working for yourself or others?
I mean, we also have like a points-based system that it's we can hand out on what an employee does or whatever. So we have a points-based system that we can hand points to an employee and then cash those in for different rewards and stuff like that. So that's another benefit that we have. That it includes gift cards to other restaurants. I mean, it includes all kinds of stuff. Even possible daycare for people when it comes to that kind of stuff. We also have an internal, basically we all can put money into this. It's basically just a give back. So if you are having a hard time with something, or if if you miss a house payment or a apartment and things aren't great in your life, we have a way to give back to our employees. So there's things like that, just little perks that people do love. We continuously keep looking for ways to give back to the employee. And I'm sure that's going to keep evolving, right? You got to keep finding creative ways to do those things. So.
Yeah. What about you, Andrei? Anything you guys have looked at or done?
Yeah. We have the basics, like insurance and things like that. I think PTO obviously is an important one too. I mean, besides that, there's some smaller ones you can do that really don't cost you any money. And sort of like we've been trying to, for example, our management schedules are posted a month in advance. Things like that provide a little bit of normalcy to our industry that some people, I mean, most people, I think appreciate. Right? If I know my schedule for the next month, I can plan my life. And from a management perspective, and then on an hourly perspective, we try to at least post 2 weeks in advance. And I know some states require that, like you,
Mine.
but yeah, exactly. But down here, we're it's not the norm. So things like that might not require capital or money, but do make a difference. Obviously, those are those are the best ones. But besides that, we try to at least once a year do an internal survey of what's important, what moves the needles. We've run into, I mean, we've made mistakes in the past where we think, oh, this benefit is going to be amazing for our team, and yes, it's going to cost us money, but it's going to reduce turnover, and we paint this picture to ourselves, and then a year later, it's like we just spent all this money and
Nobody used
we're
it.
not quite sure. Yeah, we're not exactly like. So
Been
so
there,
now we're a
done
little
that.
bit, yeah.
Hate that.
So we're a little.
Movie.
That's horrible.
Totally.
So now we're a little bit more proactive and say, it's like, hey, we're thinking about this. Like, would it move the needle for you?
Yeah.
And then to our surprise, it's like nobody cares. It's like, okay, next one. No, so it's just really about whatever you do. I think it's just making sure that it'll resonate with your team, because Ryan's team might want something else than my team. There's a million variables.
Yeah.
So it's just about trying to cater it as much as possible to our team down here.
Makes sense. One I heard of more recently that cost the business nothing, but was surprisingly well utilized by employees of one particular business was pet insurance.
All right.
So
Okay.
partnering as a business, Trupanion, and you can, as a business, sign up. It costs you nothing, and the employee gets like some specified discount for doing it through their employer. And there's twice as many dog owners as parents or something like that. I don't know the math on it, but it's like everybody's got a dog or a cat. And so like it's something that the business was shocked that people like jumped into and were happy to be a part of. So that was one that I was like, oh, that's creative. I had never thought of that one. So anyways, kind of free to the business, but employees feel like you're taking care of them and their life and the way their life works and that kind of thing. So just one idea for you there, Andy. All right. So we have one more webinar, another next webinar coming up. It's going to be about tip pooling and tip sharing and best practices and industry trends and what people are doing right now. That'll come up on February 25th. You can hit the registration QR code there. Tanya just grabbed it in the link, so that's good. And then I know we didn't really talk about TipHaus today. That wasn't the point. The point is to really get thought leadership into the room and bring, experts like Ryan and Andrei and their expertise to just have a conversation. One thing I've loved about our industry and the restaurant business is how collaborative we are and how much we want each other to succeed, because, a rising tide and all of that kind of stuff. We're not a monolith. We're not competing with each other in the true sense. Maybe, I definitely know you two aren't competing in Indiana and Florida, but anyway, so I do appreciate that about this industry, and I appreciate you guys taking the time out of your busy days, busy schedules, opening restaurants, working on everything you're doing and whatnot. So thank you for doing that. So with that in mind, I need to, Tanya, where'd it go? Give away something really quick. And the answer is, who won it? Ben Roberts. You are our random today. So Tanya or Lauren will be in touch. Congratulations. Thanks for joining us today. So Andrei, one last thing. Oh, I already did book a demo. Thank you very much for joining us. Ryan, good to see you as always. Look forward to seeing you at a conference soon. Andrei, I'll find my way to Miami probably soon because the weather sucks in Seattle. So
Yeah, it's nice weather here, except this week, which well, actually, yeah, I just looked back and the sun's out, so never mind. It's nice here.
Yeah. It's 28 degrees outside my
Yeah.
door. So
it was cold here this morning, which is like a cool 62.
A cool 62. Wow, that's really rough on life.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you, gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be with you as always, and thanks for sharing your time and wisdom with all of us. And thanks everybody for joining. We'll see y'all soon.